Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mormon Atheist. All right, so here we are again, apostate congregation. We got some new digs, as you can see. This is only going to be temporary, though. I really don't like this, so this ain't gonna happen for much longer. I wanted to kind of go outside, and we took it outside a little bit, but it's not working. I don't like it. And so I'm going to do a couple of videos here, but most likely we're going to figure something else out because it's too dark. I don't like it. It's too dark. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and just kind of roll with it for now because it's what we got, and it's obviously not good. So anyways, we're going to keep going, apostate congregation. So what I have for you now is we are going to start Solomon Southwick's book. This is a solemn warning against Freemasonry, okay, addressed to the young men of the United States, 1827. Okay, so I want to kind of give a little backstory of Solomon Southwick and what he even is, right? Why is he important to Mormonism? And most importantly, okay? So, and how does this pertain? All right. So we're starting a new series here. This is going to be a series. We're going to read the book like we just did with the William Morgan illustrations of Masonry. We're going to read these books in lineage, right? So William Morgan's book was first. Now we're going to do Solomon Southwick, and then next we're going to do David Bernard. David Bernard, his book is quite thick, so we are going to figure something out with that book. Morgan's book and Southwick, they're relatively short. Solomon Southwick's book is 140 pages. Okay. So one thing I really harp on in all the videos is you must read the preface to these books, right? If you don't read the preface, you lose the entire picture of what the book is even about, okay? So Solomon Southwick is the creator of the Anti-Masonic movement, all right? So as what he did was he created the political party, right? He was writing as early as 1805 against Freemasonry, okay? Now you have to understand the context of what's happening here, right? These people are warning you against Freemasonry, right? But in 1827, Freemasonry was a religious institution, okay? And so it was a very different concept, different idea of what we have going on with it today. So when we take this stuff into account, we have to figure this out. We have to understand what all of this is, okay? And so that's what we're doing with this. We're legitimately reading the book. So he created the movement itself, right? He's writing in 1805 against this. And so we look at this as today as this silly story, this silly thing, right? But it's very not, okay? It's a legit historical event, right? And we are going to talk very briefly about William Morgan, but briefly, okay? Because that is not what the movement is about. It's not about him. So I want you to totally forget that, okay? Let's see, what else is there? So what else is Solomon Southwick good for? So I don't know, he's done a lot of stuff. I really urge you to read up on him, find out who he is. He has a ton of work, a ton of literature out there that you can read and look up. The Plowboy. Plow is spelled Plough. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. He has several, most all of his writings are anti-Masonic. All of them are, right? But you have to understand the context, though, right? This is a religious institution at the time. Okay, it's not what we think of today as Freemasonry, right? And they are warning us against this religious institution called Freemasonry. They refer to it as the Church of Masonry, okay? Now, me and you, apostate congregation, we know that they very much are referring to the Mormon, like this is the Mormon Church, is what we're talking about. Okay, it's the Church of Masonry. All right. Correlate today the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and all the Masonic stuff that goes along with that, right? And already what we have learned through William Morgan, right? And reading his book, not the story about William Morgan. We're not interested in that. We wanted to read his legit book, right? Which we did. You can go back. There's a playlist. You can click on the playlist and start from episode 1. Okay, so in this series, right, you are very much going to need your Bibles. Okay, you're going to need your Bibles in pretty much at least once in most episodes. I don't want to say all, but most. Okay, because Freemasonry is biblical, right? You have to know the Bible, but you must remove your faith out of the Bible when you read it for it to pertain to Freemasonry, right? And I'm going to give you countless upon countless examples of this. So hold on to your potatoes, get your splash bags ready, because we're going to get super juicy, super soppy, and super dirty with this book, because we are going to name names. We are going to talk about Daniel Wells, Smith from Vermont, the painter, the hatter, and the loincloth maker. No shit. So it's going to be interesting. This is going to be a really interesting episode series. So I also want you to keep your Mormon hats on, though, when we do this, okay? Because there's no Mormonism at this time. Understand that. This is 1827 when this book is published. Okay? There's no Mormonism. But we are talking about a church of Masonry, the Church of Masonry. Okay, we're going to get into the Church of Christ, right? The Church of Christ is all over this. So if you've been following my videos, right, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I forgot where my mind just totally went blank. So anyways, let's get going. My mind just completely went blank right there. All right, let's get going. So this is Solomon Southwick's book, 1827, A Solemn Warning Against Freemasonry Addressed to the Young Men of the United States. This is Kissinger's Legacy Reprints, is this book. All right, so we are going to start out with, right here is page, this is not page 1. Yeah, this is not page 1. All right. So anyways, this is the original cover of the book, right? The inside, yeah, it's the original cover of the book right there. Okay. All right. So this writing is extremely small, and as you can see, the ink blots, right? These are reprints, right? These books are out of print, so you can see the ink blots. So it's like really hard to read. And these are also on printing presses, right? Back in the day, the 1820s printing press, right? So if they didn't have, for example, the letter C, they would use an E, and vice versa, right? If they didn't have an S, they would use a $sign, things like this, right? And so as you read these old books that are out of reprint, or out of print, I mean, uh, you have to kind of figure that out as you go, right? All right, so this is some really small writing, and it's all fudgy like that, so I'm going to do my best to read it, all right? Okay, so it says, a solemn warning against Freemasonry addressed to the young men of the United States with an appendix, okay? Now, that appendix, when we get there, is explosive, right? That's, okay, this whole book is super juicy, but the appendix is where the good stuff is at, okay? So let's keep going. All right. The correspondence between Eliphaz Murdoch, okay, that's important. So, apostate congregation, if you've been following along in these series, okay, in the William Morgan series, you guys kept notes, right? You know, the word cement, the Yakin and Boaz, the three jewels, all of this stuff you guys kept notes with, right? So you're gonna need those notes when we get here, and you're gonna have to take more notes. You're gonna have to take a fuck ton more notes on this, because these names are so important in Mormonism. That's how this book is so important. Okay, this book is gonna fucking blow your mind away, right? So Eliphaz Murdoch, right? If you remember in the William Morgan story, one of the people that also died was uh, uh, Murdoch, right? Well, nobody knows anything about that guy. Him and his wife. His wife later became uh, a Mormon, right? So all the people that had something to do with, Lucinda Pendleton became a Mormon. Murdoch's wife became a Mormon. All of these people became Mormons, right? And this is verifiable. You can Google this and you can look it up and you can follow these names, right? Eliphaz Murdoch, right, is also Eli Murdoch, right? So Eliphalet, Elephant Murdoch of Leroy, Genesee County, New York. Okay, so with an appendix, with the correspondence between Eliphaz Murdoch of Leroy, Genesee County, New York, and the author relating to the supposed murder of Mr. Murdoch's father. Okay, so Eliphaz is the son. Eliphaz Murdoch is the son, which became a Mormon. Through Masonic, the murder of Mr. Murdoch's father through Masonic vengeance at Messellerville, in the county of Albany. What does that say? Messellersville? I think that says Messellersville, which would be the Messers. I forget his first name, but Messers, right? The mesmerizers, right? That's Metzer in the county of Albany in October 1803, and several other interesting matters. Okay, so that's going to be in the appendix. All right. Okay, so now we keep reading. I think that says Mason. Mason, comma, if sinners enter thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with me, let us wait for the blood, let lurk privily. Oh, here we go. All right. So let me do this. That writing is way too small and it's messed up. So is what it says at the bottom, right? Down here at the bottom. Okay. It's a, it gives you the Bible verse of what this is, right? This is a Bible verse. Okay. So the Bible verse, all it says, now remember, this is Masonic. So when you get into Masonry, you have to have the initiative. If you don't have the initiative, you're not going to make it through these videos, right? You have to have the initiative to be initiated. Okay. So you have to have the initiative to look at this stuff, right? So all this says is Ephesians verse 11 and 12. Okay. Okay. Well, there's how many chapters are in Ephesians, right? And all of it says is Ephesians 11 and 12. So let's go to Ephesians, apostate congregation, in your Bible. Get your Bible. I got my 1984 edition. And let's go to, let's see, I did have it. Okay, chapter 5. Let's go to chapter 5. We're going to go to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11 through 12. And here's what it says. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. That is your justification for your blood oath. Do you understand me? Ephesians chapter 5, verse 11 and 12. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Verse 12. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. Everything in Freemasonry has a Bible justification quote to it. Okay, we are going to get heavy into the Bible. I told you, apostate congregation, on every single episode, you must know your Bible to understand Freemasonry. If you don't know your Bible, forget it. You have no chance. You have zero chance. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels in dumb conspiracy theories. Okay. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, now we hit the dedication page. Here we go. So I've done several videos on this book and with this book and all that kind of stuff. So I already have stuff highlighted and everything, but we're gonna clean slate all this. We're gonna read it as if it's all brand new, and we're gonna keep on trucking. So the dedication page, I want you to pay attention to these names, okay? Dedication is to Trumbull, Trumbull, Carey, Timothy Fitch, William Davis. Okay, well, let's just keep going. All right. These names are so important, apostate congregation, because these names are going to take you to Dartmouth College. They're going to take you to Yale, to Harvard, to Oneida, I mean, it William of Davis, like that's Jefferson Davis. All right. So we're literally going back in time. Get in the time machines, congregation, because we're doing this. We're going, right? This is no shit gonna blow your mind away. So stay tuned all the way through. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. What's our time? All right, let's go. Timothy Fitch, William Davis, Hinman Holden, Hinman Holden, T.F. Talbot. We all Mormons all know that name. James P. Smith, Lyman D. Prindle, Eleazar Southworth, William Keyes, Jonathan Lay, Committee of Genesee County. That's the Committee of Genesee County right there. Okay. Orson Benjamin, Heman Chapin, HemanChapin, Jonathan Buell, Buell, Ralph Wilcox, Banny Bradley, Josiah Porter. We all know Josiah Porter, Mormons. Committee of Bloomfield, Ontario County. That's the Committee of Bloomfield, Ontario County right there. Samuel Rawson, Nathan Jenks, Jenks, Jonas M. Wheeler, Samuel Ewing, Ewing, Elijah Sedgwick. Elijah is Elijah. Hold on a second. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but that was pretty loud. All right. Sedgwick is Sedgwick. John Sargent, Sargeant. Thomas Wright, and that is the Commission of Victor, Ontario County. Okay, Samuel Works, Frederick F. Bacchus. Bacchus is Backus. Heman Norton, Heman Norton. Frederick Whittlesey, Whittlesey. Josiah Bissell, Bissell, Jr., Josiah Bissell Jr. This right here is literally the only mention of Thurlow weed I could find. Period. Hands down, full stop. And I truly don't believe that this is even, I think this was added because there is no such person as, I can't find anything on Thurlow weed. Nothing. So let's keep going. That is the Commission of Rochester, Monroe County. Isaac Lacey, Samuel Lacey, William Pixley, Pixley, Benjamin Bowen, Committee, what does that say? Committee of Chile, Committee of Chai, I don't know, Monroe County. John Garbut, Garbut, Truman Edson, Edson, Clark Hall, Committee of Wheatland, Monroe County. Bates Cook, Alexander Dickinson, Samuel DeVoe, DEVEAUX. John Phillips, Committee of Lewiston, Niagara County. That's where Morgan was supposedly taken. Okay, now here we go. It says, gentlemen, the dedication of a book, if not the offspring of mere private friendship or gratitude to a patron, implies that those to whom it is addressed have rendered some signal service to their country or mankind, have either by their wisdom, valor, or patriotism aided the one, or by their humanity and benevolence and by their humanity and benevolence conferred obligations upon the other. You gentlemen have done both. A number of you in the first place, as members of the Lewiston Convention, right? This is the Lewiston Lodges, right? Engage in bringing to light the foul conspiracy against the liberties of our country, which robbed William Morgan of his liberty and life. Remember, William Morgan is an allegory. Me and you are William Morgan. They are warning us against this institution, robbing us from our liberty and life. Okay? Otherwise, disgraced our annals, ANNALS. And all of you, in the second place, as the authors and signers of a report upon those unparalleled outrages, which does honor to your independence and integrity. Which does honor to your independence and integrity. And is immensely calculated to open the eyes of your fellow countrymen to the dangerous and destructive influence of all secret associations upon their civil and political liberties. In the execution of these imperative and important duties, you have, in a generous spirit of humanity and patriotism, spent much valuable time and labor, and incurred many heavy expenses, and have suffered at the same time much abuse, calumny. I know what this word is, but I don't know how to pronounce it out loud. Calumny. I can't get my mouth to move like that. I know what the word is like in my head, but all right. Anyways, we're going to keep going. And persecution from a powerful and secret combination of midnight conspirators and assassins. I want you to keep your Mormon hats on, apostate congregation, okay? For all this, your fellow countrymen owe you a debt of gratitude, and I feel it my duty in part payment of my portions of that debt to inscribe your names in front of this work as those of public benefactors, of whom it is but just to say, in spite of all that can be said to the contrary, by editorial tools. By editorial tools. That's very important. And other unprincipled sycophants and knaves. Okay, one thing that's very important to understand about Solomon Southwick is he does not hold back. He swings, and he swings hard. And he has one hell of a dark sense of humor. So this is one of my favorites. I personally am in love. I have a man love with this guy. Okay. I love Solomon Southwick. This dude is the OG whistleblower on Mormonism in 1805. Understand, there's no Mormonism. It's Freemasonry, the Church of Masonry. Okay. Sycophants and knaves, that I deserve the undivided respect and grateful remembrance of the present and future generations, with these sentiments which flow from the heart as well as the head, and the expression of which in this place and on this occasion I have thought due to every principle of patriotism and justice. Okay. Freemasonry goes against God and country. The Mormon Church goes against God and country. The Mormon Church is Freemasonry. I subscribe thyself, gentlemen, your friend and fellow citizen, the author. You have to remember, this is in 1827. Okay. The Constitution of the United States, the Revolutionary War, all of these things are current events, right? More or less, 10, 15, 20 years, right? These are the things that are happening at the time. These are current events. So these are the things they're writing about. Okay? So the American colonial pride, right? That the Constitution, we just signed the Constitution. So that God and country pridesmanship, right? The countrymen, the pride is running deep and running rampant, and which we have totally lost today. We have totally lost this today. And the reason we have lost it is because we lost the anti-Masonic movement. The anti-Masonic movement failed. The Mormon Church prevailed. Right? In my other videos, Joseph did not create anything. They separate Freemasonry and the Mormon Church. The Church of Christ and Freemasonry separate. That's what happens in 1830. And we're going to talk about it. Okay, so that was the dedication. That's the end of the dedication. Now we have an advertisement, Apostate Congregation, and we are going to read this advertisement because it's important. Okay, this is how you wrote books back in the day. This is a reprint of an 1827. This is actually called a pamphlet. This is not a book, it's a pamphlet. Okay. So, advertisement. The solemn warning portrays to the rising generation in colors true, if not sufficiently vivid, the dangerous consequences to their temporal and eternal happiness. Also, I want you to think about today, right now, today. Epstein files, bloodline lists, Charlie Kirk being shot in Utah, all this shit that's happening in Utah, MK Ultra, Mormon Monarch, all this stuff that's Mormon based, right? That we've all heard over the years, but it's until the last, Epstein files and Mormon Monarch, and nobody knew anything about this stuff. Until the Mormon Atheist brought you the Anti-Masonic movement in Solomon Southwick, David Bernard, and William Morgan's book, Illustrations of Masonry. So think about because these books are warning us against what is taking place today. What's taking place today, right now, the Epstein, all this bullshit, the anti-Masonic movement is legitimately warning us against it in the early 1800s, right? So we're seeing right now, we are seeing the fruits of the failure of the anti-Masonic movement. Unfortunately, that's what's happening right now. Let's keep going, apostates. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, let's go. So anyways, the dangerous consequences to their temporal and eternal happiness that may ensue from their joining an association, which ought never to have had existence in this free and enlightened country. We're just coming out of the age of enlightenment, right? And the existence of which cannot be preserved without eventually destroying our civil and political liberties. What the fuck is happening right now? Okay, this is an 1827 congregation that this Solomon Southwick is writing his book, A Solemn Warning Against Freemasonry, the Church of Masonry, the LDS Church. The reasons of the author for preferring to publish this work in a book form are that having been prescribed by the order is italicized, having been prescribed by the order in the first place for simply publishing the truth, for simply is italicized, the is italicized, for simply publishing the truth. Be determined, on the other hand, to prescribe them as enemies and traitors of their country. Freemasons are enemies and traitors of their country. Their country, her constitution and laws for attempting to suppress the truth, italicized. He accordingly did commence in his editorial department to return prescription for prescription with the conscience conviction at the same time that while their prescription of him was mean, dastardly, and at war with the constitutional rights and liberties of the citizens, his prescription of them and their works of darkness was called for by every principle of honor, humanity, liberty, and law. He will therefore continue to prescribe them in his editorial department. They're talking about Solomon Southwick, right? So long as it shall be the pleasure of divine providence to sustain him at the editorial desk in health of body and mind, but independent of his editorial labors, right? This is about Solomon Southwick right here, okay? He wishes to place on record his opinions of the order, italicized, right, in a form that shall render them more likely to be handed down to future times. That's me and you. These are all writings to the future. Okay, he's writing to me and you. All of these books are writing. They all say, I leave it to the reader of the future. If you don't stop this now, it's gonna get, you won't be able to. Well, fucking look at the world today. Okay, if you don't stop this now in 1827, you're not going to be able to. And look at where we are. Okay. That of editorial matter, the future times than that of editorial matter. He wishes to place in the hands of the rising generation, me and you, apostate congregation, we are William Morgan. What he believes will have a tendency to preserve thousands of them from ruin. If thou wilt but listen to the admonitones of truth and experience, to divert promising young men to whom the God of nature may have given fine talents and generous and noble sensibilities from plunging into paths and pursuing steps that lead down to the gates of hell. I love this guy. In his object, on the one hand, and he will not conceal that on the other, he has no objection under existing circumstances to bring his humble talents into market in a just and honorable cause, in the hope of no more than a fair remuneration for his mental labor. These are the considerations which have indeed him to prepare this work. If you're asking why I'm reading it like this, it's because these books are out of print and the words, these are reprints, so the words are all blotchy and it's hard to make the words out, right? And so that's why. To prepare this work, and they are such considerations as he believes will induce thousands of honest, honorable, and patriotic men to encourage it. The minions of the order have propagated an opinion. Whatever they could do, wherever they could do it successfully, that he is insane. Right? You have to, this book is very, very complicated. I told you in the last sequence in the William Morgan book, that book, Illustrations of Masonry, explains to you what everything is and where it's coming from. Okay? This book, and from here on out, it's all written as if you already know that, because you got to understand this is what's happening in their day, right? So everybody already knows this. So he's writing this book as if you already know all this stuff, right? So I strongly urge you to go back, and if you're just discovering the Mormon Atheist or this series, watch the William Morgan or read his book, Illustrations of Masonry, and prepare yourself, because that is very much the introductory book. That is the playbook for what is to come, which is Solomon Southwick and David Bernard. Okay, so there's a very clear lineage, step-by-step process here. Okay, so the order, so is what he's saying to you right now is the order, they have their minions, and they go around and they make you look crazy. Okay, they make you look, he says that he is insane. And then in quotations and italics and bold, he says, mad as a March hare, exclamation point. But he desires their calumny at the same time that he pities sincerely their miserable ignorance. What do Mormon apologists do? When you go on these Facebook pages, when you go on all this stuff, what is their number one argument? Oh, you must have a problem with something, right? You're emotional, you're this, right? They have pity, right? And then, you must be miserable. I'm sorry you're so miserable, right? That's the Mormon apologist, like, go-to right there, right? They hit your emotions. So right now I'm giving the playbook, right? You people out there, now you know how to combat these fucking morons, right? Don't play their game, is what Southwick is telling you. Don't play their stupid game. Don't fall in their trap, right? The Mormon trap. This is the Mormon trap, okay? That makes them the dupes of a foul. Foul is spelled like a bird, F-O-U-L. Imposture. Okay, so let me read that again. But he despises their calumny at the same time that he pities sincerely their miserable ignorance, that makes them the dupes of a foul impostor. If he be mad, however, he is determined. There shall be the method in his madness. You understand me? Okay. This is 1827 language, right? You got to, a certain noble-minded ancient and Christian philosopher was charged with the same infirmity when combating similar, if not equally atrocious, impositions of wickedness. In quotations, bold and italicized, he gives this quote: I am not mad, most noble Festus, as the Christian champion, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. End quotations. Now, if the writer of the solemn warning shall not speak forth the words of truth and soberness, in the estimation of all who have the smallest regard for truth, freedom, and righteousness, he will consent to be called mad. If you have any pushback, they're going to call you mad. They're going to call you crazy. You're emotional. You're all these things, right? They hit on your emotions. This is the apologetic way, right? By them, as well as by the fanatical, blind, and stupid, or impostrously wicked and corrupt apologists of Morgan's abduction and murder, on this ground he is perfectly willing to stand or fall. When the following work shall come before the public, and he cannot but hope that all parents and guardians who have sufficient confidence in his talent to perform this task, and who think as he does of the Masonic order, may see and feel it necessary and importance of encouraging the work. All who are disposed to purchase this publication will please address their orders for any number of copies to the author of Albany, enclosing the amount and paying postage, and pamphlets shall be forwarded according to direction at 3 shillings single, or $3 per single dozen, $2.50 per dozen for any number net less than 6 dozen. Albany, October 9th, 1827. Okay, that's the end of that. That's the end of the advertisement. Okay. All right. Now, how much time we got left? Okay, so apostate congregation. We are going to get into the actual book now itself. Okay, so do you see how important the context is? Right? They give you all the context, the name, dedication, T.F. Talbot, James P. Smith, Josiah Porter, Thurlow Weed is even mentioned in here. I am very highly critical of Thurlow Weed. Extremely critical of Thurlow Weed. Okay. I have researched this guy so incredibly in depth, and I 100% can't find anything on him. Nothing. There's his memoir, which was after he died, and then it was reprinted, and then it was reprinted again, and now it's like totally different. And there's one pamphlet that is thought to be written by him. We don't even know if it's actually written by him. And as a prolific writer as this guy was, a newspaper guy, there's nothing. There's no books like this that you can go buy. Solomon Southwick. Solomon Southwick, you can Google his name, you can look up his archive, like you can read this guy's work for days because he has 20 years of newspaper articles, and well, he's got more than that. His whole life, his entire life, he's writing newspaper articles, pamphlets, booklets, leaflets, you name the kind of literature, and he's wrote it. Thurlow Weed, there's nothing. There's nothing. Nobody ever writes about Thurlow Weed. Nobody ever talks about Thurlow Weed. There's legit nothing. And as prominent of a guy as Thurlow Weed was supposed to be, you would think some of those shakers and movers that he's talking to and supposed to be around would say something about the guy. But they don't. Nobody does. Nobody does. People talk about Solomon Southwick all over the place. I can show you books in 1842 where they're writing about Solomon Southwick. I can show you books in 1888. I think it's 88. I could be wrong on that. Anyways, John Quincy Adams is writing about Solomon Southwick. So, there's multiple things to corroborate what Solomon Southwick is saying. Thurlow Weed, there's nothing. All you get is those two books, and that's it. That's it. And everything else that comes after that is LDS affiliated. Legitimately, everything fucking after that, like after his death, all of the writings and shit about Thurlow Weed are all LDS affiliated stories. All of them. All of them. But here we have Thurlow Weed's name that's legitimately in a Solomon Southwick book. But this is the only place that I could ever find Thurlow Weed's name that has anything to do with Solomon Southwick by Solomon Southwick himself. Does that make sense? Okay. So, apostate congregation, if you're just joining, please bear with the lighting and all that kind of stuff. This is supposed to be a new thing, and I really do not like this. I really do not like this, and I'm sure you don't. Okay, there's not enough light. I need more light. I can't even read my freaking book. There's not enough light, right? I mean, I have enough light to read my book, but you feel what I'm saying, right? So, anyways, we are definitely going to try to figure this out to change this, because I can't do this. Hopefully this will be the only episode like this. Hopefully. But all right, let's keep going. Let's get into the book itself now. You know what? We're an hour into it already. Let's keep going, congregation, because it's been a while since I've done a video. And Solomon Southwick is my hands down my favorite author. So I want to get into some Southwick, man. All right, so let's get into it. A solemn warning to the young men of the United States. And this is Solomon Southwick now writing to me and you. This entire book is addressed to the young men of the United States, okay? And women, because I know a lot of you women out there watch as well. And some of you ladies out there, I got to give it to you. You're more into this shit than the dudes are. It's fascinating. I love witchcraft. Witchcraft is phenomenal. It's a beautiful thing. And when you get into Solomonic magic, which we're going to get into a lot of Solomonic magic, if you there's nothing evil or demonic about Solomonic magic, about any magic. But if you use it wrong, then yes. Or if you abuse it, okay, which is what our government is doing right now. Speaking of that, I'm going to go way off topic right now. I'm going to go on a little rant. Okay, I'm going to go on a little history rant, congregation. Okay, so I really never talk about ancient history ever on this channel. I'll throw a word or two around, right? But you guys all know that follow me that I do read these books, ancient history books, right? Some of you know that the channels that I follow personally, so you know that I'm very much into this, right? Any of you have ever heard of the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh? Okay, now I want you to think about that story, right? think about the gods, right? And how the Agigi, right? The common people, the commoners on the ground, right? The worker race, okay? They don't like what's happening, and the gods create a flood and wipe out the Agigi. And he tells one guy, hey, okay, there's going to be a flood, and that guy more or less saves humanity. Okay, now, apostate congregation, I want you to put that idea into context today. The world leaders are the gods. So one of the things that I think, right, of ancient times, I don't think the word God is like a celestial being, right? I think it's what they called the Bronze Age and before. I think it's what they called their king or their ruler or their, their president or, whatever name you want to throw in there, right? I think that's what that God was, right? And there were many of them. There were multiple gods. So we're talking about like towns, like, kind of think of like a Roman Empire kind of thing, right? There's like this little pre-Bronze Age empire. And they were very much a worker. They were a slave race, right? The gods pretty much enslaved everybody, right? And the people didn't like doing the work. They were fed up. They weren't getting enough out of the work they were putting in. That's what the Agigi wanted. They wanted fairness. And it pissed the gods off, and they got too loud. The Agigi got too loud, and the gods came down and wiped them away, right? Well, what's happening today, apostate congregation? So we better be careful, because we are the Agigi, right? We are William Morgan. We are the Agigi, right? These allegories go back all the way in time telling us. These are allegories. They're historical allegory. They're telling you a story in allegory. Because just like in a solemn warning against Freemasonry, he can't come straight out and say, hey, these guys are killing people, or he's going to get killed. So the same thing's happening back then, right? So do you get my point there? We are the Agigi, so we better not get too loud with all this Epstein shit and bloodline stuff, because make no mistake about it, the Mormon Church is on that bloodline list. You can Google the bloodline list in the Epstein files. I'm not talking about the pint of blood. I'm not talking about any of that shit. The legit Illuminati blood list, the bloodline list. The Rothschilds, the Vanderbilts, all of these people. And then it's like the third one from the bottom, second or third from the bottom. It says the Mormon leaders. Okay, apostate congregation. Now we can squabble. It doesn't name names, but does it fucking matter? Does it fucking matter? The Mormon leaders are on the bloodline list that we all call the Illuminati and all this kind of stuff, right? They're on that list. I don't care whose name it is. It's the fucking Mormon Church. And if you watch my videos I forget the name of it, Is the Mormon Church America's First Secret Society or something like that, where I legitimately tell you in 1791, we're going to get totally into all this. In 1791, it's commissioned to create a Masonic, the Masonic Lodge. Let's go. My countrymen, it is on your account and not on my own, that without preface or apology, I claim of you a patient and a candid hearing in what I am now about to lay out before you. We're going to get so heavy into this. This is beautiful. And this I am satisfied, notwithstanding, but few indeed of you can know anything of me, that you will cheerfully award, for although experience may not have taught you much, as she is a low teacher. I love the way this guy talks, man. I love the way this guy talks. Experience is a low teacher. All right. Okay. Experience. She is a slow teacher whom we are obligated to follow long before she answers half the questions we have put to her. And too often, alas, does she leave the wispat? What does that say? A wispat? Does she leave the wispat of us to sink? Oh, wisest. Okay, wisest. I'm sorry. It's the smudging. The smudging. Does she leave the wisest of us to sink into the grave, the victims of ignorance, error, and delusion? Yet the native good sense, as well as good feeling, of American youth will at all times, I believe, as they ever have done, induce them to listen with candor and patience to whomever, to whatever is intended to promote their own happiness and render them worthy of themselves, of their country, and her high destinies. I am well aware how almost impossible it is to put out old heads upon young shoulders. Even back then, apostate congregation, 1827, the old men. It's impossible to put old heads on young shoulders. The brightest and the something youth something youth are equally in want of experience. So the youth is constantly in want of experience, and without some experience, it is difficult. You see the conundrum, if not impossible, for any human being calmly to survey the dangers, page 8, that encompass him, and clearly to perceive the means of averting them. The youth of bright intellect and sound native judgment is true, will sooner arrive at the necessary information to enable him to steer his bark safely through the stormy ocean of life than he to whom nature has been less bountiful in mental and intellectual endowments. If you're stupid, you're stupid. I'm sorry. You know, it's survival of the fittest. You know what I'm saying? But still both may need but still both may need the monitions, but still both may need the monitions of the aged, of those who have had experience, to enable them to start the more fairly in the race, which is to terminate in their temporal and eternal salvation of destruction. It certainly is not from arrogant presumption on my part that I now address you. Okay, he's talking to us. Nor is it from any wish to court your favor or render you subservient to any selfish purpose of my own. Right? He's telling you, hey, I don't give two shits what you think. Here it is. Do with it what you will. Ambitious of power, I am not at this time of life. For I have calmly surveyed the heights of political elevation and know full well that however fascinating they may be at some time and under certain circumstances, they possess but few, if any, charms for him who has lived long, been chastened by adversity. I have been and seen much of mankind, covetous of wealth, covetous, covetous. I don't know how to even pronounce that word. Covetous, that's it. Covetous of wealth, I am not. There we go. Yep, that's the right word. Covetous of wealth, I am not. For I have tasted, and rather tested, both extremes of prosperity and adversity. And full well have I learned in the pursuit of riches, there is a happy medium at which every wise man will aim. And that however necessary it may be to arrive at that for our moral comfort and convenience. Yet it is not that alone, and still less, it is the passion of power that can ensure the tranquility of happiness of a rational and immortal being. I have said thus much myself, because I am well aware that the subject to which I wish to call your attention, and especially the honest, just, bold, and proper manner in which a sacred sense of duty to God and my country demands of me to treat it. This whole thing is about God and country. The Freemasons, the Masonic order, totally goes against God and country. That's what the anti-Masonic movement is all about, right? They're warning you against the religious institution of Freemasonry. We're going to get into this. They legitimately call this the Church of Masonry. Okay? Me and you today call this the LDS Church. Now you consider the bloodline list and all that kind of shit. Noah Smith Jr., Henry Smith, the Church of Christ. This stuff just continuously adds up. And eventually you have to say, okay, I give. Okay? Because there's no way around this. The LDS Church is the Church of Masonry. You cannot deny that. And we are going to get so deep into this. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really hope this kind of like a little morality pep talk right here that Solomon Southwick is giving us right now. I hope you're all digging it, because Solomon Southwick, I admire the hell out of this guy. I respect him. I've done several videos on him. He is the first whistleblower. He is the first dissenter, the first Masonic dissenter, right? So, God and country demanded me to treat it, are calculated at this peculiar crisis. We're in a crisis right now. We are literally seeing the anti-Masonic movement repeat itself today, right now. This is the beginning of the new age, right? The new age of enlightenment. We are William Morgan, congregation. We are the legions of many, because we are the ones that are bringing the light to this. We are the adversaries. Okay? Hail Satan. We are the adversaries to these fucked up people that are eating babies. The Mormon church is legit farming fucking children. It's in the MK Ultra Mormon Monarch papers, right? And multiple other things. You can't deny this anymore. Okay? Are calculated at this peculiar crisis to bring no small share of odium upon my head from a certain quarter. Keep your Mormon hats on, but we're talking Masonic. Okay, I want you to think Mormonism, but I want you to be in the Mason mode. Okay, because we've already been talking about read between the lines kind of stuff already. We're only on page 9, and it gets deeper. Right now, he's just talking to me and you right now. He's not even really going into stuff. Those who have already basely misrepresented my motives, malignantly slandered my reputation, and attempted by means far from honorable to injure my interests on account of my editorial exertions, feeble and inefficient. It is true, but heaven knows virtuous and sincere, to bring to light the foul conspirators who, in the language of Judge Throop, right? Write that name down. It's going to come back. Judge Throop, Throop. A lot of you already know that name. When he sentenced 4 of them to a punishment by far, very far, too mild for the enormity of their crimes. We're going to get into who he's talking about and who those people are, because Mormonism, you all know these names, have robbed the state of a citizen of his liberty, a wife of her husband, and a family of helpless children, of the endearments of protecting care of a parent. Those, I say, who on this account have pursued me with their slander and malignity, will be equally busy. This is why I think Thurlow weed is a plant right here. This right here. Because everything I could find on Thurlow weed is Mormon related. Thurlow weed may have been a guy, a legit person, but he's not who we think he is. Do you understand? I have a right to presume in persuading you that this address is to the distaste of a selfish heart or an unsounded head. From these remarks, my young countrymen, you will perceive the Freemasonry, it's in big giant bold letters, you will receive the Freemasonry is to be the theme of this address. It is so, and it is to, this is important, congregation, warn you most seriously and solemnly against the order. This book is entirely written to warn you most seriously and solemnly against the order, as one fraught with incalculable mischief to all your dearest interests in this life, as well as in which it is to come, in death. That to convince you, if I can, that your safety and your duty to your happiness and your glory equally demand of you to shun, as you would, the bohun upas, Bahonupas, or the simian of the Arabian deserts. The alluring steps that lead into a Masonic lodge. Remember the three steps. We've already talked about this, so we're not going to go over this. We've already talked about this in the previous series. So now this book is talking as if you should already know this. Okay? So we're going to get, so William Morgan is beginner. Now we're intermediate. Bernard is advanced. Okay? But this is like super advanced intermediate here. Okay? The alluring steps that lead into a Masonic lodge room. For they are emphatically the steps which lead down to the gates of hell. I shall now proceed to give you my reasons why you ought not to enter into the Masonic Association. They even call it association. We call it an organization. They call it association. And as Freemasonry boasts of her 5 points of fellowship, I will exhibit as beacons to warn you from her dark and infernal paths, at least 5 points of her folly and wickedness. Right? At least 5 points of her folly and wickedness. The 5 points of fellowship, he's going to show you the 5 points of her folly and wickedness. You cannot then become Freemasons without, 1, risking your life. If after obtaining the wicked as well as the frivolous secrets of the order, you should, on calm reflection, think it your duty to God and your country to reveal them. 2, sacrificing your personal dignity or self-respect in a manner too humiliating for young men to honor and sensibly to stoop to. I love this guy. He is so hardcore. He just fucking hits you hard, right? 3, running the risk, and a very imminent one it is, of learning to tipple, Tipple, and thereby losing the respect and esteem of society and becoming vagrants. 4, betraying the rights and liberty of your country. To become a Freemason, to become a Mormon, you are betraying the rights and liberties of your country. 5, incurring the displeasures of heaven. If the Bible be not a forgery, and Christianity a fable of man's inventions, that you will run the risk of your lives at above stated by becoming Freemasons, you may learn from the following letter, which I have recently occasioned to write, to say nothing of the mass of evidence collected at 3 different trials of persons charged with the conspiracy to kidnap William Morgan and David C. Miller in the counties of Ontario and Genesee, New York, and the still further evidence afforded by a late executive proclamation from the National Intelligencer. Okay, so this is an article from the National Intelligencer. Okay, this is Messrs. We all know Messrs, right? Gales and Seaton. I'm going to read this last one, apostates, and then I'm going to cut it off because I don't like how dark it's getting. It's getting, I don't like that darkness. Is it still okay with you guys? I don't know. Maybe if it's all right with you guys, we'll keep going for another few minutes. But if not, I don't know. I don't like how dark it is. Anyways, let's keep going. So we know the measures, right? Messers, right? This is a different Messers, though, right? Let's keep going. Gentlemen, as in giving place to my advertisement, or rather prospectus, you have expressed an opinion founded on an article which you have copied from the United States Gazette. Okay, if you're following names, you can write these names down, the United States Gazette, right? I highly recommend you writing all of these names down. That way you can do your own fact checking, your own research. You know, you can just go buy this book. It's like $15 or something like that. I think I paid like $8 or $9 for this book. I don't even think I paid $15. I think the reason I paid $15 was because of the shipping. That's why. All right. So anyways, let's see, the United States Gazette. And as I know that article to be utterly destitute of truth, I will not say intentionally so. From beginning to end, you will permit me through your columns to make a counter statement which I know to be strictly true. The Gazette article asserts that the excitement in relation to the abduction of Morgan and Miller was caught up for electioneering purposes. Electioneering purposes. The Gazette article, okay, this is not true, was got up for electioneering purposes, but let us look at the facts. On Sunday morning, the 10th September 1826, William Morgan was arrested in Batavia on a criminal process and carried off to Canandaigua. There the criminal charge was abandoned, which those who had arrested him on it knew would be the issue, as it was from the beginning a mere trick to get him off the limits of Batavia, where he was confined for debt. Immediately on his being discharged by Justice Chipman, keep track of these names, Justice Chipman, Chipman, on the criminal process, a debt was trumped up, which had no real foundation, by the same party who had brought him from Batavia, on which, being poor and friendless, he was put into the jail at Canandaigua. The next night after this event, one Loudon Lawson, Lotonlawson, that is, you can Google Mormon archives. There's Mormon history on Loudon Lawson. Since convicted of one Loudon Lawson, since convicted of kidnapping Morgan, and now in prison for the deed, came forward under the mask of friendship and persuaded Morgan to permit him to pay the debt, inducing Morgan to believe that it was out of pure friendship and that he would take him to his house. Poor Morgan was too credulous. He agreed to Lawson's proposal. But the moment the latter sought him out of jail, he was seized violently by Lawson and one or two other persons, for notwithstanding his cries of murder, was forced into a carriage and drove off. Jehu like, Jehu, right? Remember what this stuff means, right? Since which he has not returned, nor have any tidings been had of him, excepting that it has been clearly proved at the last Ontario session that he was taken to and confined in the magazine of Fort Niagara. Now, I want you to Google what a magazine is in those days. It's not a freaking booklet, right? So Google what a magazine in Fort Niagara actually is, okay? So far we accompany the unfortunate, so far we accompany the unfortunate Morgan. I shall barely remark here that the reason why the criminal charge was abandoned was that if they had put him into jail on that charge, they could not have got him out again. And their intention from the beginning to make way with him would have been defeated. Do you understand me? That's pretty like compelling. So far, we accompany the unfortunate Morgan. I shall barely remark here that the reason why the criminal charge was abandoned was that if they had put him into the jail on that charge, they could not have got him out again. And their intention from the beginning to make way with him would have been defeated. Read between the lines, congregation. Now for a few words as to David C. Miller, the editor of the publication of. Now for a few words as to David C. Miller, the editor of the Republican Advocate at Batavia. So the Republican Advocate, look that up because these are the original publications of these things. Okay. In scholarship today, this stuff is so muddied and is so that Republican Advocate isn't nowhere mentioned. So you got to realize what's happening here. These are the OG books. Scholarship is written on these books, and then they twist everything to their fucking whatever it is they're trying to push. I say, fuck all those people. I don't want to know their agenda. They have a clear agenda. It's either for or against whatever, right? Well, I don't care. I want to know. I'm not for or against. I just want to know. And then I will form my own opinion. That's how I operate. I hope you operate the same way. So here we keep going. He was engaged in printing a book, Illustrations of Masonry, of which Morgan was the author, and for which the latter had been kidnapped. The night after Morgan was carried from Batavia, Miller's printing office was set fire. In Batavia, Miller's printing press was set fire. Apostate congregation. Hello. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. We're talking about September 12th. Okay. The night after Morgan was carried from Batavia, Miller's printing office was set fire. Why was his printing press set fire? Because they printed a book that went against them. Why was the expositor set fire? Because they printed a book, an article that was against him. The similarities are so fucking striking in Freemasonry and Mormonism, it's disgusting. They are legit side by side, hand in hand, conjoined twin fucking sisters. Okay? They are the same thing. And in 1827, they're telling us about how Mormonism got started. And they're warning us against it. Okay, so the night after Morgan was carried from Batavia, Miller's printing office was set fire to and came near being consumed. Now, there's like 3 sentences right here that are cut off. Okay, and then it picks back up over here. So there's like 2 or 3 sentences right here that are faded. So I have no idea what it says. And then it says, out of jail at Canandaigua. Okay, so there is where a conspiracy is born, because you lose it. Okay, so all we know is the printing office was set fire to and came near burning, consumed. And then it says, and that's the end of the sentence, consumed. And then it says ED, so Ed, out of the jail. So being, I don't know, I can't even read it. And then the sentence after that is just completely like smudged. You can see that it's there, but it's totally smudged. Out of jail at Canandaigua from 68 men. Oh, I'm sorry, from 6 to 8 men, all Freemasons, entered the village at Batavia armed with hickory clubs. Now here I want you to think of Laban, the story of Laban. Okay, First Nephi, the story of Laban. When you go in, and the stage, the setting is the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Think of the story of Laban when I tell you the story. Entered the village of Batavia armed with hickory clubs, seized David C. Miller, likewise under pretense of a criminal process, and carried him off by force as far as the village of Leroy, where he was given to understand that he was to join with and share the fate of Morgan. But fortunately for Miller, the people had become alarmed and turned out to pursue his captors. And he was rescued at Leroy and escorted safely back to Batavia. The process on which he had been taken, turning out to be a sham. Okay, so the whole thing was staged, right? The abduction of David C. Miller was staged, like that which had unfortunately succeeded in the case of Morgan. The whole thing is a fucking scam. William Morgan does not exist. Okay, they are talking allegory. The death of William Morgan is the death of me and you. It's the death of our civil liberties to God and country. That's what William Morgan signifies. Okay? But I cannot take leave of Miller here without paying a merited compliment to John Haskell, Esquire. Pay attention to these names, congregation. To John Haskell, Esquire, Haskall, Esquire, ESQ, period, of Leroy, a Royal Arch Mason. Okay, keep track of these names. John Haskell, Esquire, is a Royal Arch Mason, to whose intrepidity Miller was greatly indebted for his release from the ruffians who had seized him. Mr. Haskell has since openly seeded, I think that says succeeded, from the Masonic fraternity. He retired from the Masonic fraternity on account of those unlawful proceedings. So he quit the fraternity. Were not these unparalleled outrages, gentlemen, sufficient to excite the people without the aid of electioneering? What are we having right now? We're having a problem with electioneering. What's Trump talking about? The mail-in ballots, or their rig. So this is nothing new, right? What is the Mormon? Why did they get kicked out of Ohio and all these places, right? In 1827, they're worried about fixing the elections. These people vote in blocks. The Freemasons will vote in blocks and groups. What is the Mormons? What was the whole Mormon thing, right? They got kicked out because everybody was afraid that the Mormons are going to vote in blocks. We are paralleling. I mean, sometimes things just are what they are, right? Okay. In 1827, we're talking about fixing the fucking elections. We are not these unparalleled outrages, gentlemen, sufficient to excite the people without the aid of electioneering, artifice, or selfish views on the part of any one. They certainly were. They did, of course, cause an excitement, of which I will now state briefly some of the results. Town and country meetings were immediately held in the counties of Ontario, Genesee, Monroe, Livingston, and Niagara, by which delegates were appointed, all of respectability, right? So the delegates, right? You got to think this. We are in the beginning phases of the United States of America right here, okay? The delegates, right? They're selecting the delegates from the Masonic fucking order, from the Mormon church, the goddamn delegates to elect the president. Do you understand me? They are selecting the delegates from the order. You got me? Upon whom it was enjoined as a duty to investigate thoroughly, as far as they possibly could do, the facts attending to the abduction and supposed subsequent murder of Morgan. What's our time, congregation? All right, so we're going to stop there. Page 14. That's an hour and a half. I feel like that's good. It's getting dark. Like it's. I don't like the darkness for some reason. Like I feel like it just keeps getting darker. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but does it look the same? I don't know. Don't comment on the chats. Comment like after the video's over. All right. So anyways, this is episode 1 in Solomon Southwick's book. Okay. This is a solemn warning against Freemasonry, addressed to the young men of the United States, 1827. On the next episode, we are going to pick up on page 14, and we are going to continue. This gets really, really political, apostate congregation. And the further into this we go, you're going to start recognizing names. If you're into Freemasonry and you're into the history and you're into all this kind of shit, if you get into any of the colleges, Oneida or Dartmouth or any of these kinds of things, you're going to get these names, okay? And we're going to talk about it. So stay tuned. Like and subscribe to the channel, everybody, if you haven't already. This channel will never be monetized, so please subscribe. The only way you can help this channel is by liking the videos, commenting, sharing the videos, telling your friends, read the book, subscribe. This channel will never be monetized. It is so incredibly heavily suppressed already as it is that there is no way, like, it's just not possible. And I wouldn't do that to you guys, because if you look at the other podcasts, how come none of those guys are talking about the Epstein files? None of them are. The main ex-Mormon podcasters, none of those fucking people are talking about the Epstein files, because they can't. That's why they can't. They can't fucking talk about it. That's why. Okay, well, the Mormon atheist can talk about any fucking thing I want, because we do not accept money on this channel. We're not fucking bought and paid for. We're not. And we don't hide behind this bullshit nonprofit. What is a nonprofit, Apostate? Have any of you ever looked up into what a nonprofit actually is? The intent. It's all about the intent. What is magic? The intent. If your intent is wrong, you will lose your inspiration. You fucking nonprofit people. Nemesis. Nemesis is fucking real. Okay? If your intent is bad, what is your intent, ex-Mormon nonprofit groups? To get rid of Mormonism? Because that's what a nonprofit is to get rid of something. You're trying to get rid of something. You're making a change, right? Okay? Either for the better or the good. So you're calling yourself ex-Mormons. So naturally, I would assume that you're trying to get rid of this organization. So therefore, you're using your nonprofit to get rid of this organization. Pandering is not getting rid of this organization for more likes and clicks and views and donations. Stop fucking donating to these channels, Apostate Congregation. Why are you donating to these channels? I mean, it's your money. You can do whatever you want to. Go pay a school lunch tab. Go to the poorest school in your neighborhood and drop $10. Some of you people do $100 super chats. Do you know how many kids in a school that'll feed? Go pay that shit to a school, man. And you're giving it to these fucking knuckleheads that repeat the same thing over and over and over again. For 15 fucking years, we've heard the same goddamn story over and over and over again. And then you just pander. Pander. And you people pay for fucking pandering. How do you like being pandered to? Does it make you feel good? You fucking pussy? Okay? Apostate Congregation, I know none of you are like that. The people on this channel are badass. We love you all. We don't pander on this channel. I will never pander to you. I'm just going to give it to you straight. Okay? And here we go. So that's it, Apostate Congregation. Now I'm just talking trash. And let's go. So, Apostate Congregation, we are William Morgan. In the words of the late, great Solomon Southwick, the ashes of Morgan will rise again. And here we are, Apostate Congregation. We are the legion of many. We are the adversaries to this bullshit fucking cult club that's ruling the fucking world. And the only people that are doing anything about it seems to be podcasters. We are William Morgan. We are the adversary. We are the legion of many. Okay? Like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the other side.